Good morning. Welcome to the Operations Committee. First up on the agenda is Recruitment and Professional Development Update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we are here to provide you with an update on recruitment and professional development. My name is Sarah Deal. I'm the Executive Director of Recruitment and Staffing. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is William Morant. I am the manager for District Office Staffing.
Good morning. I'm Ashley Stewart. I serve as the Executive Director of Talent and Organizational Development.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. So by way of background, I just wanted to let you guys know that we present to the Teaching and Learning Committee twice annually regarding teacher and principal pipelines, which in a more recent iteration included an update related to recruitment. But this is the first time that we're presenting recruitment information to the Operations Committee. So we will be discussing recruitment for teacher and there we go. So we will be discussing recruitment for teacher and key non-teacher positions, principal recruitment, as well as professional development offerings to support the employees that we recruit. We'll start with teacher recruitment. So Maryland is a state that prepares half the number of new teachers needed annually. And so we employ a variety of strategies to recruit a large, diverse pool of candidates. As you can see, we've hired over 550 teachers for the last 2 years, this year significantly more than that, and anticipate needing to recruit for approximately 650 teachers for this upcoming school year. The increase for this year is not due to greater attrition, but rather an increase in the number of teacher positions and a greater percentage of positions filled.
I'm sorry, what was the last thing you said?
Greater percentage of positions filled. So we filled more positions than we did last year. And then finally, we listed our largest recruitment sources. These include our 3 alt-route partners, as well as our 5 greatest traditional recruitment sources. So this slide shows the breakdown of the teachers hired by content area so that you can see what content areas we recruited for school year 1920. This shows 610 teachers as opposed to 680 on the previous slide based on a slightly different methodology. This only includes external teacher hires to the district as opposed to current employees who have transitioned into the teacher role from substitutes, for example, or paraeducators. As you can see, elementary, English, math, and special ed were among the content areas with the greatest percentage of new teachers for school year 1920. Fine arts was also a focus this past year, and as you can see, we hired over 40 teachers for fine arts positions.
Do all these positions require a certification in the subject, or do some of them not?
They do. They do. So one critical recruitment source is our Maryland colleges and university partners. In addition to attending College of Education events, we are also partnering with departments outside of the schools of education to recruit teachers for high needs content areas given our need, such as math majors, for example. Maryland is making regulatory changes this year that will impact certification beginning July 1st, 2020. And so in addition to making sure that the requirements are clearly outlined on our website, we'd like to hold information sessions this fall and spring for interested candidates so that they understand the eligibility requirements to teach on a conditional license with Baltimore City Public Schools. We value the experiences of our teacher interns and provide an expedited hiring timeline and process to keep them in city schools. So on the left, you can see the colleges and universities that we partner with for student interns. We have approximately 100 student interns with us right now. And then on the right, you can see the hiring timeline and process for interns. So because our student interns spend a considerable amount of time in schools, we offer early contracts when an intern expresses interest and a principal believes that they would be a great fit for the district. So
Excuse me.
go ahead.
You said you filled, I think, 680 positions this year?
We hired 680 people,
And
teachers.
how many do you interview to get 680?
Oh, that is a great question. I don't know. I would have to follow up around that. I don't know our sort of applicant to hire conversion rate.
Yeah, just be curious.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think it's a good question. The last thing I was going to say is that we've added 2 new events in December and February this year to share information with our interns around the expedited hiring process, but also to encourage them to stay with the district. So we wanted to provide a glimpse into the number of new hires from our top 5 recruitment sources for traditional candidates. So this information is based off the highest education degree provided by new hires at the time of hire. So as you can see, we hired 48 teachers from Towson this year. Morgan was next, Johns Hopkins, and then we hired 18 teachers from each of University of Maryland, College Park, and Coppin State University. So collectively, we have partnered with our 3 alt-route partners for decades to recruit, select, develop, and support over 200 teachers annually. So alt-route partners provide about 1/3 of our teachers annually. They enable us to significantly extend our recruitment reach, and they focus their efforts on providing teachers in the highest needs content areas. Additionally, this year, we prioritized placement in schools designated as high need, whether concentrations of poverty schools or Title I schools. And leveraging this strategy, the number of fully staffed concentrations of poverty schools increased by 10 or around 8%. We also attend dozens of recruitment events annually to build a pool. So we are still finalizing the recruitment calendar for this upcoming year, but we wanted to share broad statistics from our events from last year. So as you can see, we attended 26 events across 9 different states with a focus on HBCUs and always considering adding new events based on what we're recruiting for. We value teacher and principal participation to ensure that we're recruiting the best candidates for our district. So on the left, we highlight teacher ambassadors. So teacher ambassadors participate in the interview process and also create positive candidate experience, helping us keep candidates warm while they are in the pipeline for principals. And then on the right-hand side, we reference principal and district leadership, who collectively help us identify the best candidates for the district. Nearly a dozen principals represented at recruitment events last year, as well as representatives from a variety of district office departments. So this slide highlights the tweets, the photos, the participation that we've had at a selection of recruitment events last year. You likely can't see the details on the slide very easily at all, but each tweet sort of shares where we are, a photo about the event, and lets people know how eager we are to meet prospective teachers to city schools. Sorry, were you still looking? Okay. All right, so as we're looking forward, we wanted to look back at the lessons that we learned for school year 1920 in preparation for the upcoming school year. So we know that we need to connect candidates with principals earlier. So candidates want to hear from human capital and teacher ambassadors, but they really want to speak directly with principals about school-level opportunities as quickly as possible. So beginning this February, we will be providing opportunities for candidates to connect informally with principals as a meet and greet to start building relationships so that when the vacancy landscape is more firmed up, they'll be able to start making hires. We also want to expand our reach, so we went to Puerto Rico last year for the first time in recent years to focus our efforts on bilingual and other high-needs content areas. So to expand our impact, we know that we need to continue relationship building, and so we plan to revisit Puerto Rico this year with a particular emphasis on relationship building with four-year universities in San Juan. Additionally, last year we increased our recruitment capacity. We increased our recruitment capacity by adding 2 positions a year ago and a third this year, and by leveraging additional staff on the human capital team to broaden and deepen our impact on recruitment. I'm sorry?
How's that working for you? I'm thinking in terms of incrementally. So you added more staff. So what's the additive in terms of bringing in more recruits? So is that a nice return on investment, or you're still in the early stages?
I mean, absolutely. I don't know if I have an exact number, but prior to adding staff, we had 1 manager of recruitment to recruit for all school-based positions. And so this has enabled us to divide up and screen all of the teacher areas and to really be able to deepen and expand our reach.
Don't you think that'd be a good slide?
Sure.
I mean, you think it'd help you sell your idea.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess another question I have for you is I'm not too good with the acronyms, but you had
Oh.
BCTR
Yep.
and TFA.
Yep.
They direct to concentration of poverty. And
That's
then you got
right.
UT directed toward Title I. Explain what's in the sauce. Why do you do that?
Yeah, so to be frank, a lot of it came from budgetary decisions this year. We simply did not have enough funding to be able to fund Teach for America and BCTR. So based on funding, we funded the entire contract for BCTR with concentrations of poverty funds, which meant that we had a responsibility to place BCTR residents in schools designated as concentration of poverty schools. This year, we funded the Teach for America contract, I think 0.75% with concentrations of poverty funds and 1/4 with Title I. And so therefore, we also had to make sure that we placed appropriately. Did you want to say something else?
I think that's the reverse, because Title I
Oh.
would have paid for K through 8, because Title I will pay for K through 8, and
Oops,
concentrations of
sorry.
poverty paid for high school.
Okay.
So I just,
Okay, so
Thank
high
you.
school is contribution of
You're
poverty.
right, Allison.
TFA.
TFA, and K through 8 is a Title I. Okay, and that's TFA. So how much money do they get? TFA.
I believe the contract was $880,000. $880,000.
Okay. And what about the other 2?
So I believe BCTR was $661,000. Urban Teachers is actually a different model.
Okay.
So what we funded for Urban Teachers is the residency year, leveraging Title I dollars for
Okay.
placements in Title I schools with a goal that they will transition to full-time teachers in Title I schools after they complete their residency year.
Okay.
So Urban Teachers has a different model than Teach for America and Baltimore City Teaching Residency. Urban Teachers has a year-long residency before becoming full-time teachers with city schools.
Thank you.
And can I just, on the question about the efficacy of both the additional staff positions and then the way that we funded this, I think, Sarah is very modest, but it's really had a huge impact,
Oh,
I think, on schools in terms of those additional positions. So this is the year we had the lowest number of vacancies at the beginning of this year that we've ever had. It was below 100 teacher vacancies at the beginning of the
88.
school year. What?
88.
88, which is significantly below what we've ever had. So that was just a huge accomplishment. As Sarah said, the way that we had to fund those programs was a result of difficult budget decisions. We did not, at the time that before, remember this year, we did a lot of our budget work before the end of the General Assembly session, and so we did not know what resources we were going to get or in what form. And at that point, we didn't know if we were going to be able to fund TFA or BCTR, which would have been really problematic in terms of staffing schools this year. So the team was really creative with identifying TFA, Title I as a source for TFA, and the Title I team was helpful with that. And then once we got the concentrations of poverty, then we thought too, we were just the day before we were going to meet with BCTR to tell them there would be no funds this year for recruitment, and we realized that maybe we could take a similar strategy with BCTR to pay for it out of concentrations of poverty and focus those recruitment programs on those schools, those higher poverty schools, Title I or concentrations of poverty schools. And as a result, this year is the first year that the vacancy rates at schools that had high concentrations of poverty was lower than it was at schools that are less poor. And in the past, it's always been the opposite. So that's a huge, and then one last reflection I would say is that I've also heard from principals as I go around and visit schools about how much more effective, how really effective the hiring process was this year, and how it's gotten so much better over the years, and I think this year being the best of steady improvement.
Yeah.
Another question. I guess
Sure.
the catch-22. So you're bringing in new teachers to the concentration of poverty schools. So you're doing well in recruitment, but you're bringing these young people maybe to throw to the wolves. How's the retention going?
So that is a great question, and you guys should build on this too. And I agree that one of the concerns was, are you putting inexperienced teachers in schools that where you need really experienced teachers? And so that is a genuine concern I think that we have all had. I think the reality is that without those programs, those schools would have had vacancies. So I will certainly take low vacancy rates over high vacancy rates anytime, even if it's with less experienced teachers. I think the thought process, like what are the ways that we support teachers in these roles for them to be successful in those schools, because it's a completely valid point.
So, well, okay, to piggyback off of that, I would like to hear what are the ways that you're supporting those teachers, but secondly, could there be some sort of incentive for experienced teachers to go into those schools and using the same Title I dollars to pay for that?
So
Or, I'm sorry, concentrations of poverty dollars to pay for that.
So I'll speak to that first question. This was the first year that we offered a supplemental New Teacher Summer Institute for teachers coming into Title I schools. And so we have our general New Teacher Summer Institute for all teachers. We have a New Teacher Institute for special educators, and this was the first year that we were able to provide, thanks to Title I funds, a New Teacher Summer Institute specifically for teachers coming into Title I that gave them extra days to better understand what it means to teach and work and operate in a city schools context. There were sessions and modules on the history of Baltimore, on particular neighborhoods. There was time they spent with our Executive Director of Equity, Dr. Tracy Durant, to talk more about what it means to teach and be part, again, of the city schools staff family, particularly around what it means around race and equity. Because they were going to the schools that we're going to, we felt it necessary to provide supplemental development for them. They received the same amount of instruction around curriculum, their content areas, how to connect across the district with various IT platforms, and all of those basic things. But this was the first year we got really strong feedback that the teachers that participated from the Title I schools very much appreciated that lift. Moving forward, we like to present that to all teachers, but we had to start somewhere. And in prioritizing, we knew there were a great number of new teachers coming into Title I schools and felt like we had to prioritize there. So I think it's a proud moment for human capital in that we were able to provide that kind of instruction and provide that kind of platform and footing for teachers that are going into some of our tougher environments.
Could I be a fly on the wall at one of those orientation sessions?
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. We'll make sure that you
So you
get
do that
invites
twice a
well in
year?
advance.
You do that twice a year?
We did this in the beginning of the New Teacher Summer Institute. What will follow are a set of Saturday sessions for those same teachers to continue to pull the thread on their learning about what it means to teach in Baltimore City Public Schools, and also to continue their own education about what it is for them as new teachers. So we'll be more than happy to make sure that you get invitation to
Yes.
the Saturday sessions, which will be happening
Yeah,
in
send me
the
the
spring.
syllabus. Yeah,
Will do.
thanks.
On Commissioner Richardson's second question about stipends to bring more experienced teachers into concentrations of poverty school or Title I schools, so Jeremy just walked in the room. We can certainly think about that, whether that's possible. I mean, part of it would depend on whether that's allowable use, like Title I is the one that's more restrictive. Well, they both have some restrictions, so I'd have to see whether it's even allowable. But it's certainly an interesting idea, and so we can certainly bring that back. The concern that both Commissioners Reed and Richardson raised, which is understandable, is while it's good that we had a lower level of vacancies at the concentrations of poverty in Title I schools because of the use of TFA and BCTR to staff those schools, that those are the less experienced teachers. And so is there some way to mitigate that impact by also providing incentives for experienced teachers to go to those schools?
And then, Ashley, you all did an amazing job presenting at our board meeting, and you brought in folks who were a part of your training. Can you do the same thing with this new teacher group? Can we hear from one or two of them at the end of this school year? So
Sure.
like as to the impact of this additional training, and then ways in which it's helped them or ways in which something may have been missing. Like, I would love for them to share honestly what this additional support has done and maybe where some gaps may still be.
Absolutely, we can.
Thank
I think
you.
that's a great idea.
Can you work with Joe to make sure we get that on the calendar
We'll do.
for this committee? You want to come to this committee? Yeah.
This committee or, this committee.
On the subject of experienced teachers, of the 680 that are hired, how many of them are experienced teachers moving from other jurisdictions? And do pensions and other benefits carry over if you move from one jurisdiction to the other? I believe that Baltimore City's salaries are generally higher than around the state, and has that been helpful in recruiting teachers from other parts of the state?
Yeah, I don't know that we have looked at the breakdown of experienced versus non-experienced teachers among the 680 that are coming in. I'm also not, I believe that there is transferability within Maryland LEAs, but I'm not an expert on that. We could certainly follow up around that.
So, of the 680, you don't have a sense of how many are new teachers out of four-year schools versus how many are teachers that are, you wouldn't know that? I mean, is that something that you would be knowable, or it's hard to kind of calculate?
Yeah, so we do know the rough percentage that come in from BCTR,
Right.
TFA, and UT. We also could back into the number of folks who come from universities, but I don't have a sense, an accurate sense as to which teachers have prior teaching experience prior to joining us for this year. Yeah. Should we keep going? Okay, so the last slide before I turn it over, a couple last lessons. So this year we leveraged content experts in the recruitment process. So we partnered very closely with the arts coordinator in teaching and learning to keep candidates warm throughout the process, and it was really successful. And so we would like to use that as a model as to how best manage the candidate experience in other high needs content areas. And then finally, continuing to develop stronger city schools brand identity. So we leveraged social media extensively this year, and both to recruit teachers and other prospects, showcase participation in recruitment events, and highlight other exciting opportunities. And so we will continue to refine our brand identity to capture the hearts and minds of prospective employees. So those are some of the things that we, as we looked back, lessons learned so that we will improve for this upcoming school year. So now I'd like to turn it over to Will, who's going to share some recruitment efforts related to key non-teacher positions and some strategies related to district office recruiting more broadly.
And good morning again, Commissioners. I'm William Morant. I'm the manager for District Office Staffing. And as Sarah spoke to, I'll be walking us through some recruitment of key non-teacher positions. So the first ones that we will discuss will be the positions associated with the Blueprint for Success initiative, which are the intensive learning sites. I'll walk you through the hiring and recruitment for literacy coaches, student wholeness specialists, and then I will end with the Community Schools Initiative, which is largely driven by the concentration of poverty funds, and walk through how we approach recruiting and staffing those positions. Over the last 2 years, City Schools has added roughly about 40 literacy intensive learning sites. One of the things that we did differently this past school year was make sure that we had a focus and targeted candidate profile. They really focus on the high-performing skill sets, personality traits of what a literacy coach should be, and we sought to recruit from subject matter experts that currently worked in city schools, but also institutions of higher education with a strong focus on literacy. Also, this past school year, we executed a very targeted social media campaign by partnering with communications, by looking at some of the highest performing graduate education programs in the Midwest and East Coast, but also leveraging relationships with some of our external partners, such as the Council of Great City Schools, and also moving beyond just our applicant tracking system, commonly referred to as the ATS, and using paid advertising websites such as Truly Hired and Idealist to build our candidate pool and ultimately find the best candidates that were out there. Out of 40 positions, currently I think that we have 38 filled, and the number 38 is taken into consideration a pending resignation that we may have this year that we're already working to backfill as quickly as possible. In addition to the 40 literacy intensive learning sites over the last 2 years, we also have 40 student wholeness intensive sites across the district. One of the things that we approached a little differently this year is that we tried to bolster the candidate profile with a specific focus on the educational background and the professional experience of the student wholeness candidates that we look to recruit and ultimately staff these positions at the start of the school year. We partner with universities, schools of social work, and other behavioral sciences departments to make sure that we were going out and finding the candidates where they exist as opposed to waiting for them to apply through our applicant tracking system. But we also worked very collaboratively with school leaders who were a part of their first cohort to solicit feedback on what were their skill sets and traits of the highest performing candidates from the first cohort so we could build on that to hopefully continue the success that we saw in the first cohort, but make sure that we were bringing in even stronger candidates with the second cohort that began in the fall. Out of the 40 student wholeness specialist positions that we currently have, 39 of them are filled from the first 2 cohorts, but I think it's important to note that with the influx of concentration of poverty funds and also funds from CSI, some schools have adopted an approach where they will add a second student wholeness specialist in their buildings, but there are also some schools that, due to the success that we've seen, want to create a student wholeness from themselves, and we're working to fill those last 6 positions by the close of this month. And in closing, with regard to key non-school-based positions, with the concentration of poverty funds, we have, the number that you see is a little off. We have about 45 community school site specialist positions across the district. Looking at how we approach the literacy coaches and student wholeness specialists, we worked with schools from the very beginning as well as the community engagement and communications department to create what an ideal candidate profile looked like for these candidates that we were seeking. We sought candidates with experience in community initiatives, community advocacy, family service coordinator experience, or case management professional experience and background. We developed a very detailed recruitment and hiring timeline, knowing that we wanted to get the best candidates that we could in as quickly as possible. We worked with school leaders, ILEDs, and again, the community engagement department to figure out how to best leverage all of our resources and all of our personnel to get all of them hired with the original goal by the end of October, beginning of November. Of the 45 community school site specialists that we originally slated to fill back in August, roughly about 42 of them are filled to date, with the hires already started and beginning in their role, and we're looking to close out the remaining 3 to 4 positions within the next 2 weeks.
What's the average pay for the community schools coordinators?
I would ballpark estimate the average pay is somewhere between $52,000 to no more than $56,000.
William, right?
Yes.
I thought it was 48 positions, and you said it's 45. What, did we
So,
lose 3, or did we
we didn't
miscalculate?
lose 3. Some schools opted to go with, I think, an outside lead agency. And so what occurred was we are only responsible for the district hires. And due to, I think, the lead agency process, some schools went with wanting to have a lead agency, then wanting to have a district hire. And then as lead agencies were approved on a separate timeline, some schools opted to transition back to a lead agency. And so it kind of fluctuated a little bit, but I think the firm number that we're at now is about 45. And prior to coming over here, I think there are only about 3 to 4 schools that are left remaining, with us having to hire someone through the district.
And their hire will still have to comply with, like, our regulations, right, for that position?
I believe
And-
so.
And will they be also available if we have any professional development opportunities? Would they be able to participate in that, or?
So I don't know specifically, but I believe the aim of the Community Engagement and Communications Department is to holistically provide support and development. I am not as involved in the lead agency side, but I do work with the team and school leaders to make sure that they have wraparound supports. It is a comprehensive and cohesive approach as to how we're building this thing, knowing that it's new, and working to support the principals. And as we've been moving along in this process, of the roughly 45 schools that decided to do a district hire, we solicited feedback on an ongoing basis for about 15 to 20 of the principals, so that we are knowing that how we're moving is correct and appropriate for the supports that they need. They're giving us real-time feedback as to what supports they need, because a lot of this is new to them with being a community school. And then we're also soliciting feedback from the new hires, because not all of them came with prior professional experience working in a community schools coordinator position specifically. But we stay in very close contact with the principals and the principal supervisors to make sure that this is done correctly from the onset. You're welcome.
Before you go on, I just want to say huge kudos to Will and Human Capital for getting all these positions hired. So the literacy coaches are, we really have a very high standard of what we hire for a literacy coach. And so in the first round of intensive learning sites, it did take us a minute to fill those positions, because we are really hiring highly qualified, highly skilled people to do that work. And so to get them up and running so early was a huge accomplishment, and same with the wholeness specialists. And then the community schools coordinators, of course, we didn't know that we were going to have to hire all these positions on top of all the regular teacher recruitment and annual recruitments that happen. So to get those positions all up and running that quickly is just a huge testament to the work that they did to make that happen so quickly. And I know the principals have been very happy about it.
Thank you. And for our last slide, I can talk a little bit about what we are focusing on as improving on strategies for non-teacher and district office recruitment more broadly. One of the areas that we will be giving a considerable amount of energy and attention is working with hiring managers on creating targeted candidate profiles. We believe this will allow us to really identify the best skill sets, personality traits, also looking at current team compositions on who is the ideal candidate, which will then inform our recruitment efforts, where we are looking to continue to move beyond just relying on our applicant tracking system. Our belief is that we hire and recruit for a number of positions where aren't the normal things that people look for when they think of a school district. And so we're working with departments and hiring managers to really explore where do these professionals exist, and then going to those places to seek them out to actively recruit them to positions here at City Schools. We will also be looking to improve both our internal and external candidate recruitment and hiring experience. A lot of what drives candidates to an organization is the experience that they've had through the interview process, whether they get the position or not. So we will be introducing and launching a candidate experience survey, first focusing on our internal candidates that have received offers, but then building on candidates that have gone through our interview process, and even if they have not been extended an offer, understanding what their experience is like so we continuously improve upon it. So City Schools is known as a destination for somewhere to seek employment and to launch a career. And then we are also looking to apply an equity lens to our hiring process by carefully considering interview panels, interview questions, and reviewing current departmental compositions so that we can develop individualized plans for how we want to approach recruitment moving forward in the years to come. And I will turn it over to Ashley Stewart for the next portion.
Okay, so I know that we are tight on time, but I just want to give you a quick update on some of our exciting updates in our principal recruitment. We have contracted with a known expert, recruitment expert and consultant who has more than 15 years of experience recruiting for major districts and large charter management organizations who have helped us to really codify a set of tactics and strategies for internal and external recruitment of principals. So on this slide, you'll see some of the highlights of our current external principal recruitment tactics. Similar to what my colleagues have shared, we are leveraging online opportunities like LinkedIn and School Spring and advertising in other high-yield publications like TFAs to tap into their national network. We are also taking up the philosophy that talent knows talent. And so we are soliciting referrals from city schools principals, assistant principals, and other high-performing, strong out-of-district principals. This is a tactic that many selection firms use across the country and probably the world, where they might call someone who is really strong at their job and say, hey, who else would you know who might be a strong candidate within your network and circle who might consider a role in Baltimore City Public Schools? We are also offering cultivation calls. Right now we have logged about 142 potential candidates, and we've called them and tiered them. So in that third arrow, that third bullet, there's a sort of tiering system. Gold, silver, bronze, could be red, yellow, green, for instance. But essentially what this helps us do internally is to organize ourselves so that the folks who have 5 years plus with movement in student data, we offer a set of very intensive conversations with them. We will deploy staff here who will talk to them, engage them in conversations, whereas if someone is in silver or bronze with less experience, we might only have a couple of touch points with them. We might send them a couple of emails. We might offer them a phone call. But the folks in gold and silver are potential candidates that we think could be closer to day one ready principals. So this has allowed us to organize ourselves in a particular way that differentiates how we approach candidates instead of just having an all call. In terms of our internal recruitment, and you all have seen this either in this committee or in the full board, we are continuing to work with the New Leaders organization to continue our principal residency program. This year we have 7 first-year residents and 1 second-year resident in that New Leaders program, which is designed to ensure that the principals, that the principal candidates are past the assessment center and are ready to step into a vacancy if presented. We also run an assistant principal accelerator and have 6 highly recommended APs who we think could be ready for the principal seat at the end of this cycle. Typically, we hire anywhere from 10 to 17 principals a year, and last year we hired 13, which includes traditional and charter. So what we're trying to do is to build a very strong, highly qualified candidate talent pool for the principal role so that when selection comes around, we are fully prepared to help people engage.
Can you talk a little bit about the community's role in selecting or recruiting principals for neighborhood schools?
Absolutely. So I'll skip down 2 slides to slide 24. What this is on the left-hand side is the principal candidate profile. So after candidates successfully complete the assessment center, they go through a profile session, and they build in their strengths, opportunities, highlights that they want to submit as part of their sort of application, as well as things like their communication style. This provides the community, the school community, an opportunity to look at the the principal candidate against what they feel they need in a principal. So the school family community creates a vision for the school, including their leader attributes. Human capital, the school's office, and the family community engagement office match candidates to those profiles. Those school family councils then have candidate conversations with each of the principal candidates that they think could be stellar for their school. They then offer recommendations to the school's office, the chief human capital office, and the CEO makes the final decision, which is a recommendation to the board. Is that helpful, Commissioner Frank? Okay. Going back one slide, I just wanted to put out there the timeline that we're following for this year's principal recruitment. You can see that recruitment for us has already started and will run through February 2020. We have 3 dates on the calendar for principal assessment centers, which is a core function of candidates being part of our candidate pool. The dates are there on the screen. And then the selection process can begin anywhere starting early February and run through June, with the goal of us having all principal vacancies filled by June 15th. I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the professional development opportunities. This was one of the things that this committee wanted to expressly hear from us. What I will tell you up front is there are 10 slides at the end that I will not walk through. Those slides were presented during the Blueprint Leadership Update a couple of weeks ago. But if you have questions, feel free to ask. What I really want to draw your attention to is this slide here. I know there are a lot of words, so I'll try to be very clear in helping us quite understand what's going on here. So essentially, what we know is that professional development is a tool for retention. It provides staff with opportunities to keep learning, and students can only be lifelong learners if the adults in the building, the adults in the system, are themselves lifelong learners. We know that we will not hire perfect people because perfect people do not exist, but we know that everyone needs the space, opportunity, and set of resources to set and develop towards professional goals and work in their practice. We also understand that even rock star recruits have blind spots and growth edges. And so the aim of what we're trying to do now is to build a comprehensive and cohesive, well-coordinated staff development architecture that would apply for all city school staff members. So what you will see on the left-hand side are the many offices represented in what we're calling the Comprehensive Staff Development Task Force. The offices listed there are the offices that participate in weekly conversations about what it means to be a city schools staff member. At Current, the way our professional development, professional learning works is that multiple offices across the districts and schools can develop any kind of development they need for their staff and or teachers or principals. And that should continue to work. What this task force is building is a framework or a strategy around what each person in the district should be taking up if we're all going to be helping students to lead and thrive. So on the right-hand side, what you'll see is what the task force is tasked to do. This task force is looking to build a results or vision statement. What do we mean by professional development, professional learning? What are the core competencies or the ways of being we want every staff member to embody? If you go to any very successful for-profit or nonprofit organization or company, they have a set of values or core competencies that says, regardless of your role, these are the values and competencies that every person must hold and embody and be developed to execute in their roles. The how. This group of folks is being tasked with being clear and explicit about what are the key experiences, activities, such as onboarding, level set training, performance and role, what should the career ladders and pathway look like for each of our staff segments, teachers, principals, and support staff. At Current, that doesn't exist in a place. It's not written down anywhere, and so this task force will be presenting in April 2020 to the cabinet for review and authorization to put in place what I'm calling a staff development architecture that helps all of the various units, departments, and schools who are offering professional learning or development to their people to anchor into core values, competencies, and beliefs around what staff development could and should look like for staff all across the district. I would also say that this while many of the staff in this building are engaged in that conversation, what is our very next step is to build a kitchen cabinet, if you will, of principals, teachers, and support staff who will come alongside this task force so that we are not building this thing without the people's voice of whom we're trying to impact and connect. So it's important for us to engage teachers and principals and support staff in building this architecture and being very clear about what are the core competencies we all need to embody to ensure that we are doing the best we can for our young people. I'm just going to talk just a little bit about some of the opportunities in the teacher leadership development space that we kind of mentioned at the Blueprint meeting, but didn't get a lot of opportunity to expound upon. The first is a teacher leadership opportunity called Opportunity Culture. It is currently operating in 3 of our schools, Glenmount, Hazelwood, and Hollenberg. There you can see the core tenets of this opportunity. We are in the process of recruiting more schools to participate in this opportunity, which is essentially a model where teacher leaders stay in the schoolhouse, but either take part of their time out to coach and mentor a small team of teachers, or they continue to hold their full classroom and work their schedules so that they can work with a small team of teachers to better their practice, to ensure that teachers have the intellectual rigor to teach, to observe teachers and add coaching and other school time planning and collaboration and development. We think this is an amazing opportunity for teachers who have been able to move student data in a particular way and who have very strong inclinations around coaching. It's one thing to teach young people, it's another thing to work with adults. And so we screen and make sure that we offer professional development and ongoing training for these teachers, these 3 multi-classroom leaders in these schools, to continue to be able to do both and also to help bring other teachers along in a way that offers up our coaching methodology that we use through our New Teacher Center partnership.
So Ashley, Will, and Sarah, I think we're going to have to leave it there. But to echo Allison's comments, thank you very much for all that you've done. This was a great presentation, and I think something like 90% of our budget is personnel, and you guys are making that happen, so it's the most important thing we do. So congratulations, and keep it up. Keep it up. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is budget development update. Courtney.
Good morning. Courtney Desabay, Special Assistant to the CFO. And there's a clicker here. All right, so 2 main things for this month's budget development update. So the first is a little recap on the enrollment adjustment process and the enrollment adjustment summary. We pulled out some key statistics or information from the enrollment adjustments this year. So the first thing I wanted to highlight, we came pretty close to our projected enrollment number from the spring on our 930 enrollment. So we projected for funded K-12, 74,254. And we came in at 930 with about 74,413. So it's slightly higher than the projected amount. Last year also, we ended up coming in pretty close. We were within about, I think, 200 last year as well. So it's 2 years in a row where we've guessed pretty right. There are a lot of factors that affect these numbers, and there's only so much that we can kind of predict and control, but it's reassuring that we've kind of come in close on the district level. On the individual school level, there's still a lot of fluctuation. As you well know, we're a school choice district, so it's very hard for us to determine where a lot of students are going to end up making selections or families are going to make selections. We try to incorporate as much as we can in terms of portfolio changes and class shifts and any factors that we get from school leaders in terms of neighborhood closures or whatever factors that we can incorporate from facilities planning internally as well as from the school leaders who give us some input on the numbers. And we make like a reasonable assessment on that as well. But it's still always going to be a bit off on the individual school level.
Courtney? Go ahead.
Yep.
How does this year's enrollment compare to last year's?
This year's enrollment is fairly close to last year's. I don't want you to take that to mean that we've sort of bottomed out. You know, we've kind of been going down a decrease. This is
Yeah.
not the official enrollment, which is still being verified by OAA, and that's going to show us actually going down a little bit again from last year's number. So this is what we funded schools at this year, and it was also, you know, projected a little conservatively as well.
I think you should be getting a memo soon that's going to come to you with the official enrollment number, and it's pretty close to flat from last year. I think it's about 100 students. The official is about 100 students below last year, but it's close to flat.
Right. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slide 3, you talk about increase and decrease funding.
Yes.
Be good for me if I know what total funding was on that slide.
Okay.
And slide 4, I know you haven't gotten to it yet, so I may as well chime in early. You talk about Harlan Park. I see Harlan Park on there where you lose 2 students, but they lose $300,000.
Right.
I mean, in terms of relative change, that looks like it's aberrant.
All
So
right.
maybe you can speak to that too.
Okay, I will. Still on slide 3, we pulled out, like I said, some of the changes in terms of total gains, total losses, dollars, and also there were 26 schools that had a change of 10% or more. I know we go through the pain of the enrollment adjustment process, and it is fairly painful for all involved. What I wanted to show here, though, is that this year, because of how the formula changed, we did see a change in some of the per pupils, but we also saw that there were more schools gaining funding than losing this year. So this is actually the opportunity, like I mentioned when we were at the board forum, where we can actually equalize the funding formula, where we take where students actually go and move the funding appropriately instead of what we use as the estimate in the spring. And the change that you see in the charter per pupil, I just wanted to highlight that that's because of the funding that we received from the SB 1030 grant, which the charter portion is allocated to them in their per pupil so that they could pay the teacher salary incentive increases. So the next slide, as pointed out, so this is the schools who had the largest percentage decrease in general fund allocations, and largely those are tied to enrollment. So we do have anomalies, like you said, with Rosemont and Harlan Park. Rosemont was doing a transition between a charter and traditional school, which is why you see that change in funding. So after July 1st, we finalized the change in their funding from a charter to a traditional school for this year's period. So that's why you see that variance. And Harlan Park is one of the schools with a unique circumstance where, if you guys recall, we have the baseline services funding. And this funding says essentially if you have class ratios of a specific size, you're above a certain amount, that you get dollars to bring you up to that specific threshold. As those numbers change, for example, the threshold for K-2 is that you have 26, no more than 26 students in a class. If you have 27, the formula says that essentially you need enough funding for an additional teacher. So you could have instances where the enrollment stays exactly the same, but the breakdown between grades changes, where that one that we projected being at 27 is really 26 versus another one projected being at 25 is really at 26. So one will affect the formula negatively, another one might not have any impact. So we do have instances, and we go through the process of explaining this to the schools as well for their specific circumstances, what the changes are. For each of them, we'll break down exactly what the change is due to enrollment, what the change is due to the breakdown between their special education students. You may have the same number of special education students, but the composition is different. You have more LREA or LREB versus LREC, and that also changes elements of the formula. But we do break down individually for the schools how that works for their individual school, and we explain it to the school leaders as well to justify the changes and let them know what it is. The next slide we have is the schools with the largest percentage increase in general fund allocation. This one is fairly straightforward. We did see a number of schools which we expected to see increases, gain increases. All right. The last part of this is a little bit on our district-wide priority engagements. As you recall, last year was the first year where we started the community discussions on our central office priorities. This is the calendar of events for those. 2 of them have already taken place. I wanted to highlight that we sort of changed the format a little bit in 2 ways this year. First of all, the meetings last year were all fairly pretty much the same meeting, just held in different locations. This year, we tried to make it more targeted. We had specific groups that we addressed for each of the 4 meetings. The first was a youth meeting, which we did not do last year. That included a budgeting exercise that we gave this is in conjunction with the Youth Up Next program that Rashad does in communications and engagement. So he hosted it. He has a core group of students that he engages with, and he also teaches to reach out to their classmates as well. So they went through an exercise in this engagement, a mini budgeting exercise. They're given a limited amount of resources, and they're asked to make decisions in terms of how they want to allocate those resources, realizing that you can't kind of get everything that you want, and understanding the trade-offs. We also went through the process of how our district office budgeting works, or school budgeting works in general, and the opportunities that they have for input and information they can kind of pass along to their peers. The second meeting, which we held last night, was our community partners meeting. We had that at Reach in the cafeteria, and the format also was a little bit different. If you guys remember from attending some of those last year, we kind of brought, district office staff. They spoke about their priorities and, gave explanations and so forth. This one was held more as a gallery. We set up the priorities, the list of priorities around the room, and we allowed people to work in groups to go into detail on those priorities, give us feedback on the priorities, switch around, look at other priorities that they may be interested. So it was very interactive for the group and for the crowd. No one was just kind of sitting there listening to people talk. We did still have representatives from central office. We had chiefs like Chief Grant Skinner present, who were able to explain in detail some of the elements that they were proposing in their priorities for anyone who had questions, and give feedback as well. And we're recording all the information that's being given, not just the votes like we did last year in terms of what people are selecting as their top 5 priorities, but the questions that they have to dig deeper into the actual priorities. And we're going to do an FAQ response to hear most of the questions they're asking about this. Here's some information that can expand on that. So we're trying to make it a little bit more targeted, and also more interactive than it was before, not just sort of sitting and listening. We're also working to disseminate the survey in a few different ways as well, hopefully to get a little bit more feedback and more interaction than we did last year. Even though last year's was good, I think we can kind of grow on that a bit. So the next session will be a general session, which will be held at Emerson West Side. I know it's always a question from our commissioner, why are we doing anything over on the west side or that area of the city? So we wanted to make sure we targeted for Commissioner Bondima that area of the city as well this year. And hopefully we have an appropriate response in that area of the city. We're going to have our multilingual session at Moravia Park, and we're probably being a little aggressive with it this year in terms of we're doing 4 languages, not just 2. We did Spanish last year for the multilingual session. This year we're doing Spanish, French, I believe Arabic, and I can't remember off the top of my head what the 4th language was. So our engagement specialist from FCE has engaged with a number of community members and groups who are bringing representatives from those different language groups, and we're translating the presentation into those languages as well, trying to expand the reach a little bit and the ability to get some feedback on that. That session last year was one of our best attended sessions, and so far from the commitments that we have from some of those groups, it's looking like we should have a good turnout for it this year as well. All right, any questions?
Hey, Courtney,
Yep.
First of all, I really appreciate the how you changed up the engagement priority sessions, and like you focused them on different particular groups. How did the first 2 go? Like, did you get more attendance this year?
Yes, if you recall, last year, our first session at Merva, we had, I think, 8 people who were not actually city school staff or member working that night. Our first community session, the community partners one last night, we had, I would say, probably about 30-ish or 30-something folks last night, which was a little bit more than I initially thought we might have had. Like I said, it was highly interactive, so it wasn't like, previously where people just kind of sat there and, were on their phone or, doing whatever. Or you had like 3 or 4 people asking questions. We actually, split them into groups, and we had someone, a member from the group, report back out on what their group discussed. They gave feedback. It created a little bit of discussion. There were some items that, like there was an item for the Kerwin bill, where that triggered a little bit of response and follow-up as well, and we were able to give some information and feedback. So I think it was a lot more useful, not just having more people, but I think the actual interaction was a lot more useful than what it had been before as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney. I appreciate all the work you did to engage the community.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, so it's 11:30, and we have one more presentation and then procurement. So how long, I haven't looked at the procurement. Have you looked at it?
Try to keep it
You got a lot
under
of
20
questions?
minutes.
Okay, 15 minutes?
15? All right.
Yeah, great.
So we do have 2 short videos in here. They're a little bit over 3 minutes, but there are a lot of photos, so I'll try to go quickly, and then I can just take questions at the end, if that works. So these are some of the guiding principles in our called out in our district's wellness policy and sustainability policy. And I'm going to go through each of these and give you more information on how they relate to improvements in the past school year. So to start with, our wellness policy nutrition standards say that we have to serve meals that meet USDA nutrition regulations for school meals, as well as the latest dietary guidelines for Americans. And beyond that, it asks us to reduce ingredients that have been shown to not be, helpful to human health. And just to, put that out there, for instance, we are allowed to serve milk with high fructose corn syrup, and we would still meet USDA criteria. That is something that we have made particular efforts to eliminate from our menu. So this is an overview of USDA regulations for school meals. In order to serve a reimbursable meal under USDA criteria, you must offer all of the things that are shown in that little blue square there: fruits, vegetables, protein, grains, and dairy. We actually use a specific type of operation under USDA called offer versus serve. It means that we have to offer all 5 of those items, but kids do not have to take all of them. They only have to take 3 of those items, and the only item that they must take is a fruit or vegetable. So a common misconception that we often hear is kids think that they have to take milk. They do not have to take milk. Another thing I will also highlight is that it is required that potable water is made available to students during meal service. These are detailed requirements for the lunch meal pattern. I'm not going to go through these, but I do want you to see that we do have to plan these meals to very strict calorie target ranges. We also have different subgroups within fruits and vegetables that we have to offer to students on a weekly basis. So we have weekly calorie ranges that we need to meet for meals, as well as, we have to offer red and orange vegetables in a certain quantity per week. This is a photo of one of our school lunches that was served early in October, and just a little bit more information on how we apply these regulations in Baltimore City schools. We actually do not have a limit on the amount of fruits and vegetables that students are allowed to take, because we really want to encourage students to eat their fruits and vegetables. We do offer salad every day at lunch and fresh fruit at every meal. And we do put a focus across the board on our menu on trying to procure locally. 100% of our grains are whole grain rich. We don't have any high fructose corn syrup in either our grains or our milk products. We have a pork-free menu, and we actually this year have started trying to expand our offerings for vegetarian entrees. So this is a hummus wrap that was offered at BIA West in September. I think they did a really great job on presentation. On the left here, you will see not such a great job in presentation. So that's what we don't want to see, is unattractive, not colorful items. On the other, in the middle and on the right, you will see some really well done deli sandwiches by some of our really outstanding managers. And we really, want to make the meals that we serve to our students really colorful and appealing, because we can make meals that meet USDA regulations, but they could be unattractive and completely unappealing to our student customers. We are also encouraging schools to do more display trays so students are able to see what menu items they have. Many of our lunch periods are often under 15 minutes, so it is a real rush to get kids through a line and able to eat. So by having display trays, kids can actually see what is available and make their choices accordingly. And I'm just going to ask Joe to cue up the first video. This was produced by our student media team. They've been really wonderful in helping us out this year on some of our marketing.
Hey, what's up? I'm
and
Bryce
they did
Taylor
this
with
this
the
summer.
City Schools student media team, and today we're conducting a little experiment. But first, tell me, what are your thoughts when you think about school lunch? Is it not tasty, low quality, It's downright not good. Well, the nature of this experiment is to rid school lunch of its bad reputation, and here's how we're gonna do it. So this is a normal chicken sandwich that we serve in every cafeteria in the system. This chicken sandwich is usually served with sauce and a side salad. Pretty standard, right? But this is a sandwich that I've Chef Bryced up, you know what I'm saying? It's the exact same sandwich using the exact same ingredients you would get in your cafeteria. So we're gonna randomly select people to taste test and critique both, and they're gonna tell us which one they prefer. Which one of these sandwiches will be the winner? Let's find out. My name is Bryce Taylor, and I work with the Food Nutrition Department. And we're making a little video to show to the people that are higher up, because we're working on a little partnership with an up-and-coming restaurant. So here are two sandwiches. This one you've probably seen before. That's your normal school lunch sandwich. But this one is a sandwich provided to us by Jim Sandwiches. It's the spicy chicken sandwich with chipotle mayo. Jim Sandwiches, they're pretty good. I'm telling you, they're hands down probably one of the best sandwich shops I've ever been to. That's how good they are. So I'm gonna have you try both sandwiches. First, I want you to try the school lunch sandwich and tell me how you feel about that. I want your honest opinion.
I feel like it's dry. No.
I feel that. What does it taste like?
Great.
Now I want you to try the spicy chicken sandwich from Jim's Sandwiches.
This cool for real.
You like it? Mm-hmm. All right, tell me, how do you feel about the chicken?
It tastes good. It got flavor. I feel like the sauce give it more flavor.
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's about, give it about a 9.
About a 9? I feel that.
Really good.
The sauce gives more
And the
flavor?
chicken is well cooked.
It's well cooked?
Yeah.
All right, that's what I like to hear.
Can I get another one of these?
So overall, you would say that the Jim Sandwiches sandwich is better,
Yes.
and this one, not so much.
No, I don't like that one.
You don't like it?
No.
How would you feel if I told you they're the same sandwich?
I would kind of feel special.
Well, they're the same sandwich.
For real?
These are the same sandwiches.
It's weird.
Bread is the same.
For real?
This one just doesn't have the sauce or the lettuce.
That's okay.
And when you usually get this, do you eat it with the side salad?
No.
You don't put the side salad on it?
Or no sauce.
No sauce? There you go. When you put the side salad and the sauce on the sandwich, it makes you want to eat it, right?
Yeah.
And presentation-wise, which one looks better? You want that one, right? Exactly. Which one would you rather eat if you see them on the line? This one? Now, if you start doing this with all the other meals and you take it and you divvy it up a little bit, will you start eating school lunch more often?
Oh, yeah. Call it the hookup.
Call the hookup.
Probably so.
Because it's good, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you for participating today. See, they love this sandwich. All it needed was a little bit of a makeover, and we did exactly that using the ingredients that we were given. The idea is to push the initiative that if you don't like the food and its originality, either you bring something to spruce it up, or you create an entirely different meal using what you're given. So this sandwich right here, this isn't the moves anymore. This is what it's gonna be. I'm Bryce Taylor with the City Schools Student Media Team. See you next time.
They came up with that concept themselves, and they're actually going to be doing a couple more this fall. So we're really excited to see what they put together. Another metric framework that we've used to look at the quality of our menu is the Good Food Purchasing Program framework. And they don't just look at nutrition. They look at these various other categories. They look at how your workforce is treated. They look at supply chain, and they look at manufacturers. They also look at local economies, sustainability, and animal welfare. We have contracted with them to do a baseline and follow-up assessment. So they did a first baseline assessment of our school year 16-17 purchasing data. And up here you can see, kind of where we ranked for each of those categories. This is also a comparison between where our district ranked up against other districts. And I do just want to point out that this is from a couple of years ago. They will actually be doing an updated assessment of where our menu is at this point. So there are certain things that we know, animal welfare and environmental sustainability that will probably get higher scores on because we're offering an expanded vegetarian menu for protein options. But as you can see here, we were actually doing better than the median for most of our school districts in these various categories. The other thing that I want to highlight, and I think our manager of menu planning and procurement is here in the back, Monique Roll. They have done a tremendous job at really improving our menu across the board. And this past year, we received tied for third place out of the 30 LEAs in Maryland for the school food environment grades. And this is produced by Healthy School Food Maryland. So they actually look at the menus and the lunch environment and rank school districts according to each other. So you can go there and get more information. But I did just want to highlight that because it's a great achievement for our menu planning team. And then the last thing on quality I want to talk about is our project plan around a central facility. So we currently operate a warehouse off of Pulaski Highway. Right now, this has our dry goods storage, and then certain food items might go through there. Let's say we have a refrigerator shut down at a school, we might need to temporarily transfer that food until things get up and running. But beyond that, we are trying to improve the quality of food that we are offering, and we are kind of at the limit of what we can do within the existing frame of our operations. Right now, a majority of our stuff is prepared using heat and serve, while our fresh fruits and vegetables do come in their raw state and are prepared and served at the schools. We have very limited opportunity to improve things such as the sauces that we are serving. Low-fat ranch is not very, very tasty. And there is the ability with doing high volume production in a very kind of quality controlled way that we can really make more strides in terms of our menu and the quality. So this is just shows you where our existing warehouse location is. And at this point, we have an RFP out. We have completed phase 1 that has looked at this existing site in our existing warehouse and whether it would make better sense for us to try to upgrade our existing warehouse facilities and take square footage space in there and actually dedicate that to better food production, or if it would be more feasible to do a complete rebuild. So we are in the second phase of that RFP right now, and when we have that returned, we can show it to people. And that will really look at what is the real cost of, continuing to use our current facility and trying to upgrade that versus looking at a new site. This is actually a flow of food through a cook-chill production, and this is what we are trying to look to do there. You will see all the way over on the right, you have the heat and serve, and that is how most stuff comes in at our school. This diagram just shows you, what you would do if you were trying to do cook-chill production in high volume.
That's a question, just using the chicken sandwich as an example. Does it come in as a breaded and seasoned chicken sandwich from a vendor?
It
or do you
does.
have an institutional partner like a Aramark or a...
No. So we will order that directly from the manufacturer. We will lay out the specs, for the specific product. All of our protein items now come in and they are already cooked.
Right.
And then we will heat and serve them. So they are usually going to be frozen. So the chicken patties come in frozen, but they are already cooked. They just need to be, reheated and served. So see, these are some of the high volume cooking equipment that's very exciting, can enable us to up the quality for certain items that we do, and will also allow us to, really improve the consistency of production across sites. It is not easy to try to get a recipe executed consistently across 160 sites. So this will really allow us to have, a consistent flavor profile. And then we'll also really provide an opportunity for us to have kind of a mock kitchen. We try to do a lot of culinary training with our staff, so really having this be there and really doing more training with what is the best way to set up a line so that it looks attractive, so that you can manage the flow best, so that you're not unnecessarily wasting things or really just doing 3 extra motions when 2 will work, because that does add up in a high volume lunch environment. All right. The second thing on here is accommodating special dietary needs by providing information publicly and on our website. So this is a frame of the back to school envelope this year. We have been really trying to promote our new nutrition and allergen information that is available on the district's website and City Schools app. I don't know if you guys have that, but if you have the City Schools app, you already have all the nutrition and calorie information for our schools. But I'm just going to show you a couple of screenshots. This is what our website looks like. And what I did on here is I selected allergies for, I think that is peanuts and fish. And what you see is that it redded and crossed out certain items on the menu. So a parent that has a child with special, dietary needs or allergies can go on here, select their school's menu, and actually see what their student can and can't have on the menu. So that is a lot more information than we've really ever had available for folks to look at. It also provides detailed calorie and allergen information. So on here, I've hovered over the breaded chicken patty sandwich. You can see the allergens that are contained in that item, and then you also see there's the opportunity for schools to rate the item. And this gives us a lot more opportunity to get information and seeing, is the breaded chicken patty sandwich really, really popular across the district except at these 3 schools, in which case we probably have to go and sit with those staff and make sure they're following the correct production versus looking at an across-the-board product concern. Next, we want to look at strategies to promote school meal participation, particularly around promoting consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables, because that is really, probably the most powerful thing that we can do for our students by looking at non-traditional delivery models, doing student taste testings, and promoting positive dining environments. So these are all the food programs that we have available to our schools. Not all of these are available at all schools, but we have breakfast and lunch across the district everywhere. We have after-school snack and supper programs at over 100 sites right now. We have the fresh fruit and vegetable program, which is a grant program, and those schools are awarded it annually. In just under 100 schools. We work with Maryland Food Bank to do food pantries at school locations, and then we do offer summer meals in around over 100 sites annually.
Let me just ask, so we don't have to rush you. Is there anyone here from the public that wanted to testify? Okay, so we're good till 12:15. And I also wanted to ask you, can I buy a meal plan to this? To the meal? I'd like to.
Yeah, so
have
actually
access
we're
to
working
this.
right now to allow adults to use their credit cards to create a meal account so
There
that
you
you
go.
can go and deduct that from that.
All right.
But we do accept cash in all of our cafeterias, and there should be a price and portion list. So unfortunately, we don't receive reimbursement for adult meals. I'm very sad about that. I wish we did, because I would love to do more to encourage adults to be in our cafeterias eating with students. But you are welcome any day in any of our cafeterias. Just don't forget cash. This is a snapshot of our meal participation rates for the past 5 years. So you can see we have around 30% of our overall student enrollment eating breakfast on any given day. 67% of our students are eating lunch, and just under 10% of our students are eating snack and supper. Although in our second full year of running the supper program, we have actually grown to be running the largest supper program in the state of Maryland. So on this slide, you will see the comparison of our different meal programs with other LEAs in Maryland. We're actually at the bottom there next to the statewide average. But again, I do want to point out that we are now running the largest supper program for any school district.
What's the demographic of people who eat supper?
So summer has to be associated with after-school programming. And that after-school programming can't be limited to a selection of certain students. So it couldn't be something like varsity boys football, because then only males who were at the varsity level would be able to do it. Now, you can have a very broad, open-based activity. You could have an open computer lab. But once we do open a site for a supper program, it is actually any student that is at the building, whether they are a student at that school, whether they're a little sibling of a student and waiting for them, anyone can participate. So we've actually tried to bring these supper programs in closer to the end of the school day this year, because we found that we were losing a lot of students who might be hanging out after school after the last spell, but may not be participating in the after-school program. Depending on the program, some programs will charge fees to families to participate, and so we do want to make sure that supper is available as broadly as possible to students. But it really is just a basic after-school extracurricular program requirement.
2017, it cost $19 million for food services.
Food, we usually spend over $20 million annually
Okay, what is it now?
on food budget. I'm going to say FY20 is about, I'm going to say 23 million for food supplies. Yeah. So we get around $3.25 for every meal that we serve. The more meals we serve, the more reimbursement we will receive. But it's a flat rate. And another thing that we've noticed as we look at our participation metrics for students is that as students get older, even when you're accounting for attendance, they're less likely to participate in meals. High school students, are a little bit more choosy about where they want to get their food. So we're really trying to look at different ways that we can, approach our high school customers and really get them to want to participate in school meals. So you saw Bryce in the video. We are also trying to recruit funders to buy us some food trucks that we could post at our high school locations to provide an alternate point of sale. High schools often have much longer lunch periods, which much more number of students in the cafeteria, and so having another point of sale for students would be a great way to try to get kids before they, let's say, leave school grounds to, go to McDonald's, biggest competitor. These are some of the new items that we are offering this school year as a result of taste testings last year, and a lot of these items are helping us provide alternate protein options for students, really cleaning up the menu, and we have some exciting kind of desserts on there.
Chicken tikka masala, and it's delicious.
Yes, we're excited about that one. So we also really do try to promote, doing a really great job at presentation. This is a great goldfish done by Patricia Orman at Curtis Bay. She really does a fruit display that just hits it out of the park every day. She does an excellent job. These are some of our other staff at various culinary trainings that we have done. We really want to make eating fruits and vegetables exciting for students. This is a banana dolphin at Alexander Hamilton Elementary. And just some display trays. We're really trying to get people to really push the mark on the presentation of food. And then you guys did hear this summer from students that were engaged in Project Select, which stands for Student Engagement, Lunchroom Environment, and Culinary Training. MSD did a pilot with multiple school districts in Maryland, and they, engaged in these interventions with cafeteria staff and with students, and then really did some plate waste analyses to see how much of the different types of fruit and vegetable subcomponents were eaten by students. So we'll be sharing those results once we have them. We also have the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. This program provides $50 per student at eligible schools to provide fresh fruits and vegetables outside of the cafeteria setting. I will note on here, you'll see the number of schools that we have received this for has gone down in the past couple of years. This is primarily due to the fact that the federal agency has dramatically cut funding for this program. But this is done in a rank order with other every other school in Maryland all put on the same list, and then they really kind of go down that list until the funding is out. So unfortunately, we have very little control to try to, kind of counteract how the funding is done. But it is a really fantastic program. And if you thought those were lychees in the upper left-hand corner, those are not. Those are called, I believe, rambutans. So I learned that new. And then those are ground cherries in the upper right for those of you who haven't seen them, but these are some of the things our students have had this year. And then this year was our third year of offering the back to school night promotional event for schools. So if schools wanted to, we would cater their back to school night to really, foster the relationship between the cafeteria staff and the school community, and get families to really see what's on the menu. Also, in our wellness policy, we really talk about supporting the local economy. So this map shows you where some of our local products are coming from. Schmidt is our bread vendor, and Cloverland is our dairy vendor, in addition to produce that we get from various farms within a 200-mile region of Baltimore City. This is a newsletter put out by our dietitian over the summer that showed some of the local stuff that was coming in. And our contract with Coastal Sunbelt, our produce distributor, actually requires that if they claim to be providing us with local product, they need to let us know the farm of origin. And this really enhances the transparency across the supply chain to ensure we're really able to, try to put our money where we want to. We have another video here. I don't know if you have all been to Great Kids Farm, but in the past year, we were able to work with the science department to have a science second grade curriculum aligned field trip there. It's about a little over 3 minutes. we're close.
Hey, it's Amaru Barber, and I've escaped the city to Great Kids Farm, where students are learning about composting, planting, and eating healthy while having fun down on the farm. Let's go. Second graders have taken field trips to the farm this school year to learn about what do plants need. The fun starts with a walk in the woods and a meet and greet with farm animals.
You guys can touch an egg, yeah. Feel it. Be very gentle because they will break.
The goats, they had their eyes stretched out and they was eating a lot of hay.
The second graders are studying pollination, and so this is obviously the perfect venue for that, for them to see things, touch things, and have hands-on experience. It's really an evidence-based approach to outdoor education and food education for the kids.
So one of the biggest activities that kids are participating in today is planting beans and corn in the farm.
We're going to do a circle of corn, little circle, and then you're going to do a bigger circle of the beans around the outside.
I like how to dig the holes and then water it. My favorite thing for today was seeing a lot of plants.
And whenever we plant seeds, we always send the class home with some of the seeds that they planted, so they get to watch them grow over the next few weeks. So that activity probably has the longest impact, too.
After touring around and planting, these kids need a snack. How about some veggie pizza with ingredients all grown on the farm?
Raise your hand if you've never tried veggie pizza before.
I like the peppers.
I've been hearing all the hype about this pizza with the vegetables on it. It's my time to try it. It's really good. I love the broccoli. Go team broccoli.
All of the vegetables that they see on the pizza here, the cafeteria manager has the opportunity to order and cook and put on the pizzas for Pizza Fridays. And so hopefully when the kids make that connection that this is the broccoli pizza or the pepper pizza that they had at the farm, then it's just one more opportunity for them to eat fresh vegetables at school.
I get to interact with my kids outside of serving them lunch and breakfast and dinner, and get to see how they were able to learn about a farm. From the Great Kids Farm, we received salads, tomatoes, and cucumbers and different things that the farm produced that comes into our cafeteria.
An important element of the farm is composting, where all organic matter turns into soil. You never know what you might find: apples, oranges, or even a compostable school lunch tray.
We've got a cafeteria tray. We've got soil from our plants. So this is where it all starts. 2, 1. Decomposition.
We can smell it. You can see the little white seeds inside.
And at the end of the day, a commitment to educating students on growing and eating healthy will pay off in the long run.
For every dollar spent on food education is a $10 savings for long-term health care over someone's lifetime. And in a city where we have chronic health disease, we really have this opportunity to engage the kids young and get them excited about healthy eating.
So I had a great time today at Great Kids Farm, where students got to learn a lot about farming, and I'm hoping that they can use these skills in their daily lives. This has been Amaru Barber for City Schools Student Media Team. Have a great one.
So as you can see there, we've done a really, I think, terrific job working with our science department to really try to bring it all together, what students are learning in science, what they're seeing in their cafeteria. And one of our managers who went out there on our field trip actually put roasted broccoli on her pizza that Friday after they took the trip, and she sold out of it. So we're very excited to be getting more veggies on our pizzas. So these are some of the numbers. The one thing I will tell you guys is that over the field trips that we did last year, which again were targeted at second graders, we were able to see 30% of all of our enrolled second graders. And that really was, most of these were done in the springtime. Thus far this fall, we have seen 17% of our second graders, and we should hit more than 50% of our second graders this year if all of the scheduled trips go as planned. And then the last thing on here is a little bit about food waste. Baltimore City has a food waste reduction and recovery strategy. As the largest chain restaurant in Baltimore City, we are called to the table to engage around reducing food waste at an institutional level. So we have done 2 plate waste studies in our schools. The first one was done in 2014. We actually separated all of the items and weighed them out. On here, you can see that the items that we wasted more of was produce and milk at both the elementary and high school level. And one thing that I pointed out earlier is that students do not have to take milk. So a lot of this reducing waste is actually implementing USDA regulations correctly. It is kind of common, I would say, eating sense that people want a drink with them, but we do have water that is available for students. So we are trying to, make sure that people aren't just unnecessarily taking milk when they don't need to, and then that just ends up going in the trash. And as you can see in our most recent survey, on here, we have the least amount of waste with our protein items, so that chicken sandwich, and we have a lot more waste with milk, and then looking at our fruits and vegetables. So a lot of that has to do with preparing fruits and vegetables in ways that people like to eat them, and making sure things like oranges are sliced. So these are some of our food waste reduction goals that we've worked on with the City of Baltimore, and they're just here for you to kind of take a look at. But I just do want to highlight 2 things. One, in the past 5 years, we have transitioned from styrofoam, polystyrene trays to, on October 22nd, you guys passed a contract where we will be moving to compostable cutlery in the future. So we now really have a service line that has fully compostable items on it. So we really are hoping to work with partners at the city and at NRDC to do some composting pilots in our schools this spring. This is just EPA's food recovery hierarchy, and the only thing I want to point out here is that the biggest way to reduce food waste is to not create waste. So for us, that really means making our operations more efficient because we are ordering over $20 million worth of food a year. All of our processes around food ordering and food production are extremely important and can be fine-tuned to allow us to minimize waste and make sure that we are better projecting what kids actually want and will take off of the line on any given day.
Is there just one more slide that you can present?
Yeah, this is a composting tray.
What a great way to end. It's perfect.
And that's it.
Liz, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for leading this effort with our students and adults. Any questions? Okay. Appreciate it. Last up, procurement items. I take it you guys have no videos for us?
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Vogel, the Interim Director of Procurement. We have 10 items on the agenda today. In the interest of time, would you like me to go through them, or would you want to go right to questions you might have?
I need you to go through Express Scripts and Care First.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't you just, with those, dig down a little bit deeper, but just go 1, 2, 3, just very quickly.
Okay.
Hit the highlights.
Gotcha. All right. The first item is a contract with Baltimore City Health Department to provide city schools with certified nursing services. The estimated total contract is $3,951,000, and the contract term is July 1 of 2019 through June 30th of 2020. The next is your Express Scripts. This is a contract increase to a competitively solicited contract with Express Scripts to provide prescription drug management services for Baltimore City Schools employees and their dependents. The increase is to go from $85,745,900 to $96,818,000. The board originally approved the contract on July 24th of 2018, and it has a term of January 1 of 2019 through December 31st of 2021.
So the cost of Express Scripts is roughly $32 million a year, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yes.
How many employees do you have in the system?
We have about 9,500 benefits eligible employees.
So you have roughly 10,000 employees, and you're paying out $32 million a year for prescriptions. So what's that, roughly
Well, we have, I think, about 18,000 covered individuals, including employees and their dependents.
Okay. I mean, what's bothering me is that you got a Care First is next. So for dental services, we're paying like $4.7 million. For prescriptions, we're paying like $32 million. And every year it goes up. And the flip side is, so you have 18,000 employees. Dental costs less than prescription, which costs less than your regular health coverage. And we're paying $23 million for food for the kids. It's 77,000 of them. 77,000 kids, their food costs $23 million. 18,000 employees, their prescriptions cost $32,000. And it's gone up every year. I mean, my question is, why so much money?
What's the 32,000?
$32 million a year.
Okay.
Yeah, $32 million a year for just prescriptions. You still got health care, which is more than prescriptions. So, is that, I know it's competitive. I know Express Scripts is probably the best in the business. But why do we pay so much?
Sure. I just
Because they are the best at what they do.
Commissioner, I think you know this, but just to make sure others know also, Express Scripts and Care First are, a small portion of this is an administrative fee that's a part of the contract. The dollar amounts that are presented for board approval are the actual costs, given that we are, we actually pay the claims. So that's really $32 million of claims, and the small small piece of that is the administrative fee to the vendor.
And there's some portion of that's reimbursed through employee co-pays, right? Or is this the amount? This is the amount that's after you've taken that off.
Yeah, it includes
total cost.
Yeah, so some of this is really the total amount that is spent on prescription drugs per year by the district, knowing that we do receive some of that back from employee contributions. The larger question about increases is, it is the trend in healthcare and the trend in prescription drugs, that those things are getting more and more expensive each year. Beyond city schools, so everywhere.
The increase is 11 million, right?
The
increase is 11 million?
The increase over the course of these 3 years from what was previously approved.
So it's less than $4 million a year.
That's the increase.
Right. And this is, I guess, a budget question that I always have. Sometimes I get confused. So I would describe these as unanticipated costs. They were not part of the budget. So where does the money come from to pay for this increase? Is that something you can answer, or is that a budget question?
I can't answer. I don't know.
It's
how the budget is done with respect to
Marianne,
benefits.
Great, thanks. Good morning.
Good morning. Just before we get to the budget question, with $32 million and 18,000 participants, it's not quite $1,800 a person. So I know 32 million sounds almost overpowering, but $1,800 a participant per year.
That's onerous. Okay, go ahead.
And of course, the specialty prescriptions cost more than, this isn't that's just an average type cost.
The 18,000, that's not the increase. That's the 32 million divided by 18,000.
That's right. That's just the regular cost each year on average. It's $1,777 a person. So,
so my question is, we're increasing the contract amount over what was approved in the budget.
Yes.
By 11 million. Really, I guess in the current budget year, where do we get the roughly 4 million to?
I'd have to go back and check. At the time that we do the budget, we base it on the cost that we have from Aon at that time. So I'd have to go back and see what kind of Express Scripts costs we put into our budget to see what the difference is. But just like any other increase, during the year, we might have to do a budget. We might have to fund it from the contingency reserve, that's contained within the budget. I'm not talking about fund balance. We'd have to see what the difference is between what we put in the budget at the time.
One of the things we've asked, and I've often seen it in these, is that when there are increases of existing contracts, there's usually information, maybe it's in here, about where the money's coming from. So the source or some explanation.
Certainly, we can follow.
In some cases, it's reimbursed money, in some cases, it's grant money.
Yes, there is some, and we'd have to see, and it was my understanding with the new contract that the amounts that the employees are paying have increased a bit, but I'd have to see how much of that would be picked up here.
Yeah, so for the board meeting, if the committee could just get that information about what is the source of the increase?
Certainly.
Great. And how much of it is reimbursed and how much is new?
Okay.
Thanks.
That take us through dental.
Mm-hmm.
The next item is the contract increase with Beacon Health Options to provide an employee assistance program for city schools employees and their eligible benefits. Request the increase is from $1,078,440 to $1,528,440. And an extension of 3 years through December 31st of 2022.
Okay.
The next item is to piggyback a competitively solicited contract that was issued by Baltimore County Public Schools with AirTech Refrigeration and Mechanical Contractors, Inc. for the preventive maintenance and repair of food services and mechanical equipment. The estimated annual amount of the contract is $190,000. Contract term is January 1 of 2020 through December 31st of 2024. The next item is a contract, a competitive solicited contract with ENA Services. It's for session-initiated protocol trunk and transport services. The total contract amount is $465,000. Contract term is January 14 of 2020 through January 13 of 2025.
What page are we on?
The next item is a competitively solicited contract with 8 contractors to provide on-call construction management, pre-construction, and construction services. The estimated total contract amount is $5 million, and the contract term is December 11th of 2019 through December 10th of 2020, and it includes one 2-year renewal option. The next item is a competitively solicited contract with Walters Relocation, Allen Sons Moving, and Save-A-Lot Movers to provide moving and hauling services. The estimated contract amount is $400,000, and the term is December 11 of 2019 through December 10 of 2022 with one 2-year renewal option. Next item is a competitively solicited contract with Advanced Fire Protection Systems to provide automatic fire sprinkler system service in city schools buildings. The estimated annual contract amount is $300,000. The contract term is December 11 of 2019 through December 10 of 2022 with one 2-year renewal option. And the final item is, again, a competitively solicited contract with J.F. Fisher in the amount of $6,430,600. It provides HVAC replacement and construction services at William S. Baer Special Education School. The project was approved by the board on October 10th of 2017 as part of the FY 2019 SIP budget.
I guess just one question with the HVACs. Do we have more coming down the pike like Bayer School? Because I know that's big and important for us right now.
So I'll apologize, my voice is a little rough today, but Cindy Smith, Director of Design and Construction. We don't necessarily have anything else in a special education school. We have a lot of HVAC projects coming, though. I'm going to say that there's going to be one at probably every board meeting for a long time.
So can you make that available to us in terms of, so we can anticipate seeing more HVAC type programs?
So part of it's through the AC plan, which is of course on our website, even as it's the public plan. Most of them are coming that way. The rest of them all come through when we approve the CIP. So like the 2022, FY 2022 CIP was just approved at the September 24th board meeting. It was in September. So all of those projects will eventually be coming through. So as far as, it's all a matter of timing though, as far as when we get them designed and then out for bid, as far as when they're actually going to come through for the contract approval for construction.
I believe we have 2 or 3 of them on the streets now.
Yeah, I think there's actually 5. And then there's another one coming on the January agenda as well already on the agenda. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We're done, right?
Thank you.
Get done. Thanks, everybody. Let's say something else. It's on board docs. Next meeting, we're going to get enrollment projections, sustainability update, and 21st Century Schools annual report on December 17th, 2019. And we're adjourned.
Thank you.
You think it'll be outside by a rope line? Yeah, right.
All right.
This isn't as